All right, hey folks, as we get situated here, Dave Canestraro from the Air Force Research Lab up in Rome, New York. If you didn't see Ralph's presentation yesterday on Acquisition 501, ATAK did start up in Rome, New York about 2010. I was fortunate enough to be a member of the original team. That was Josh Sterling, former director of the TAK Product Center, Mr. Ryan McLean, former director of the Product Center. They were both AFRL graduates before moving to their role there. So I've had the luxury or the honor of working with all those great people in addition to Ralph Kohler. Or, you know, I don't know, I'm the common denominator there. They all got to work with me, so maybe it's a reciprocal relationship there. But we've been obviously working TAK development since 2010. Ralph hit some of those core tenets in his briefing yesterday. Making sure that the end user was the goal, making sure they were satisfied with the products they got, making sure we were listening to their requirements, making sure that we were developing something with the right data rights and the right IP, and delivering that and then putting it back in front of the end user and rinse and repeating. Eric Roll said that last year. He said it much better than I did. But until Eric had said it last year, I hadn't heard anybody say the formula, the ATAK formula for success. So I figured I'd foot stomp that one more time. I've been up briefing the TAK conference the last couple of years. I've been talking about the Assured Base Operations program at AFRL. It was a program that focused on Air Force Security Forces because Air Force Security Forces was a vocal end user. In 2019 and 2020, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force said, you know, this is the year of the Defender. We need some help for those folks. And AFRL stepped up to meet the bill. But we saw the opportunity in security forces. Many of security forces problems were problems we saw across civilian force protection, Air Force special operations, Army special operations. These guys all had the common denominator of we need to see where our guys are on the map. We need to see what people are doing. And it's got to be more intuitive. So those are the things that we immediately got after under ABO. We divided the program into 3 tech pillars. The first focused on that end user interaction and making sure TAK for security forces or TAK for force protection talk to other stovepipe systems that didn't talk to other systems. And we called that the force protection architecture. The trusted defender autonomy was the second pillar, and that was where we did all of our drone work. And again, drone work isn't unique to Air Force Security Forces. It's a technology that, you know, is uniquely universal across career fields or MOS. And we got after that in this tech area. And then agile combat employment was a hot topic at the Air Force a couple of years back. It just meant, hey, you're not always going to have the luxury of fixed infrastructure and fixed resources to defend a site. Sometimes you're going to be packing it in with backpacks or Pelican cases, and you're going to have minutes to set up defense for your site and not hours or days. So that was our agile combat employment component of the program. So breaking down each of those areas a little bit further, that force protection architecture, I highlighted some of the systems that didn't previously talk before we started this effort. Chimera is an Air Force program that it is responsible for wing level operations. We made sure that we could prototype a connection from ATAK into it. And then we focused on blue UAS and counter UAS systems. We looked at the top counter UAS systems that the Air Force was using, and we made sure that they were talking to other systems you'd use for force protection. So you've probably seen Ninja or SUADs and CFE as EWO and counter UAS approaches. They have a common denominator that is now TAK, and that has helped in force protection. We then focused on usability of the end user device. So if you look at TAK pictures across the internet, just go to like Google Images, and you see the ATAK device on the plate carrier, and half of the time the defender is looking down. Well, for situational awareness, when you're getting shot at, looking down at your device is not something you want to be doing regularly. So as we worked with both security forces and special forces, we thought to ourselves, how do we make this easier? How do we make it more intuitive? Can we talk to the device? Can we get the device thinking and doing things for us? So that is where our last couple of years of development has really focused. And you heard a lot of that today. I have the luxury of going last, so I can point to Nate Soul and say, he briefed our TAK computer-aided dispatch plugin work. He briefed our TAK GPT work. So can you get a large language model doing things in TAK to help an end user figure out what's going on in their battle space and then initiate some response? So this is still an area where Air Force Security Forces is really focused, and I have their attention because they're a career field where they're constantly looking down at maps to figure out where their people are, where the incident they're responding to is, and how much time is it going to take them and their buddies to get there. We're finding that large language model is going to automate most of that work for them and put it right in front of them on a map, and then we've given them the ability to talk to the device. With those three opportunities, you've got Dark Hive's Red Queen, IoT AI, and then the TAK Talk by Certus. So making sure that we opened up that Android device to not just button presses, but talking to it and getting answers was huge. From a UAS perspective, we approached this in a couple of ways. So the UAS tool started back in 2016, but we put a lot of work into it with the Army to extend the capabilities and make sure it was technology that either the Army or Air Force could get, swipe a credit card, buy a drone, and use UAS tool. And so part of the ABO program was making sure that the making sure there was DIU compliance of the drones that both the Army and AFSOC and Air Force Security Forces were interested in using. So a lot of that work was done under ABO. And using a common interface that is UAS tool to control over 20 different make and model drones made sense across the board. You don't want to teach someone today how to fly a Skydio and tomorrow how to fly a Teal or a Parrot. It's just a common ground control station. And I wish the Air Force Security Force SPO would have took the opportunity to brief this year, but that is exactly what they're doing. So the Air Force Security Force Center, they fly with UAS tool. They saw that opportunity, and they're a career field that gets technology changed and swiped from under them routinely. And I think I'm watching it happen in real time. They were dedicated to one platform, and then leadership said we're going a different direction. So we saw UAS tool save them time and effort. And some of their trainers were out at Wright-Patt. You'll hear me talk about Wright-Patt quite a bit because the 88th Air Base Wing is a leader in this area. The Air Force Security Force Center was out at Wright-Patt just a couple weeks ago teaching UAS tool to security forces. And so it was a huge win across the board, and it was exactly as we had envisioned it. But a couple of other things that we developed under ABO that has a ton of benefit is the drone hone plugin. So if your drone is broadcasting remote ID as the FAA said it should in 2024, there is an ATAK plugin that will listen for those remote ID broadcasts in Bluetooth or Wi-Fi and plot it on the map. And then it spawned the development of the Edge Scout and the AirTAK device, which used an external processing and resources to extend the capabilities there. And literally 2 weeks ago at Wright-Patt, there was someone who was flying at a concert adjacent to base that was a restricted airspace. The 88th Air Base Wing picked up that aircraft using Drone Hone and Edge Scout, and there was an arrest made. So this is relevant technology across the board. One of the other things we did under ABO was put the object detection capability in UAS tool. So right now there's 3 models available. When you open up UAS tool, you can toggle between them. We added a 4th that's not available in the Play Store version, but it's trained on firearm detection and fallen runners. Those are 2 scenarios we saw participating in the Air Force Marathon yearly. 2 of the concerns were fallen people during the marathon. During the marathon, they open up Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to like 20,000 civilians, and then on-base personnel are responsible to responding to any incidents on base. And when it's a warm year, 2 years ago in 2023, there was over 250 incidents of dehydration, overheating, and for force protection, that creates a logistics nightmare. And so having drones flying and auto detections of fallen runners and just the situational awareness picture of TAK in front of them, it sped up response times by like a third. So super successful. The 88th Air Base Wing is like an icon prototype of this technology being used operationally. We also see the need for flying more than one drone at a time, and this is an area where we invested a little bit of money in ABO. We partnered with a company, Sentient Robotics. I've been saying their names for a couple of years. Just a small company in California who developed a centralized command and control way of talking and controlling a number of drones. They have a 12-drone hive. We just purchased one. It'll be here in December. but it's an easy way to fly a dozen drones for different mission sets. It doesn't have to be all for all one purpose. You can task 3 drones to go do a persistence there. You can go send 3 drones to go follow a red truck around base. And the system knows when batteries are getting low, and you can dedicate a number of resources to each task. But the limiting factor is it is a centralized version of command and control. You have to interface through one node. The drones don't talk to each other. And this is an area we want to get after in the next couple of years. How do we decentralize command and control of large numbers of drones, drone swarms? But this technology alone offloads a bunch of responsibility. It offloads the logistics, whether, again, you're Air Force Security Forces or Special Forces. You want to do a mission, follow a bad guy. You don't have to care about the battery life of that drone. You just want to task some resources to do that task and not worry, take your hands off the stick, and this technology will allow you to do that. Initially, there wasn't a plug-in for it. We tried a prototype that didn't really work out, and we said UAS tool is the answer. So we're building UAS tool integration with the Hive as we speak. I mentioned some of the technologies for remote ID that you can pair with an ATAK device and drone hone, but the same is true, and I hope I'm not informing some of the folks in here for the first time that you can do this with the ADSB and ship data AIS, but those are all plugins available and technologies available to build a situational awareness picture where there previously wasn't one. Same technology is available to UAS tool, done with UGV tool. Security Forces bought a bunch of Ghost Robotics Vision 60s, and so we just reinforced the UGV tool functionality with the Vision 60. The final pillar of ABO was that Agile Combat Employment pillar. This is, again, packaging up your force protection technologies, throwing in a backpack or Pelican case, and defending a site where there may or may not be friendlies in the area. We did a quick prototype with ACCA4. We called it Remote Awareness and Control Kit. It was the performer there was 247 Group. They're guys floating around. You've seen a few of them today. And we did exactly what the ACE initiative under ABO envisioned. We put technologies. We used a Polaris M-Razor that was given to us by Peterson Air Force Base as the demo vehicle, but really it was just a nice show vehicle for these technologies. We put comms on there, persistent systems, MPU-5s, a Phoenix Banshee portable cell tower. We put UAVs on there for response. We put a smaller Teal 2 Group 1 UAS, and then we put an L2X that was capable of carrying different payloads, including sensor droppers or objects that are about the size of a sensor. We had processing on board. We had a Packstar 450 that ran the TAKServer and a video server, so all the video feeds from either pan-tilt zoom cameras or drones we deployed in the field, coming back and redistributable to anybody on the network. We also experimented with a remote-mounted weapon system, Smart Shooter and Smart Hopper. It's a small Israeli company who makes these. And we also had radar panels. So the idea was park that M-Razor on base, on a site, deploy a mast so your antennas were elevated a little bit, get those radars defending your site, and if there was something that needed to be eliminated, it cued that hopper, that weapon gimbal to that point. We weren't able to do any live fire testing under this effort, but we proved that that gimbal could cue to a radar point and provide site defense. And so that's an area where I'm not a counter UAS guy, but I think there's some potential there. So we'd love to explore that if anybody's interested in doing that. And I skipped over it in one of the slides, but the AFRL counter UAS team created a piece of software that is TAK-based. It's called Medusa Next. And it allowed us to do what I just talked about. It allows you to fuse radar hits and spit them out as a TAK point and cue cameras. So again, that's a piece of counter UAS software, but it's reusable for a bunch of different technologies. And coincidentally, Josh Sterling leads the development of that software. So if anyone's interested, reach out to me and we can show you what that looks like. I hope I have a funding line in to extend this effort, another $2.5 million. I've been given the green light on it, but the funding hasn't arrived. So again, if anybody's interested in partnering here, I have some room for opportunity, and then especially from the government side, if you have requirements For the tactical site defense, I'd love to hear them because I have a little bit of a leeway there. Two other areas that were also talked about today by Nate Soul, machine learning-based search and rescue, that Osprey technology. Nate, is that in the Google Play Store now?
It should be within, say, 24 hours.
All right, beautiful. Yeah, so, and again, developing technology, this was a technology that AFSOC asked for and saw relevance to, but civilian search and rescue also could benefit from. We built it in a way that is very, just the MO of TAK. We have a plug-in architecture to that search and rescue tool, so if there's a military-specific algorithm that we don't want out there, we can quickly swap in one that is more relevant to civilian operations. And then we created a mobile alt P&T framework. It's called North Star for TAK. It just exposes all the sensors in a phone when you don't have GPS available so that you can use them in some advanced way to do geolocation and navigation without GPS. And I'll go into a slide with a little bit more detail on some of the efforts we took there. So a little bit more detail on that rack kit I described in the last slide. That's the Polaris M-Razor on your right. Again, sensor mass on there. The remote-mounted weapon gimbal is the green thing you see on top of the M-Razor. There's a FLIR camera on there. And then the processing's all on board. Center picture is with a weapon mounted. I think that's just an airsoft gun. Let's just say it's an airsoft gun. And but it was, again, to prove the concept. When we got a radar hit, that gimbal would shift and gave everybody a level of confidence that that is exactly what we anticipated to happen, where we anticipated it to happen. And then the culminating event for this rack experimentation was an ACC event in 2024 called the Contingency Location Operational Rehearsal. We gave this technology to a group of security forces. The red team was some dudes from AFSOC, some TAC Ps from AFSOC, and for the first time ever, security forces took out the more highly trained set of red team, and so it was a big win for us and a big win for ACC. Some screenshots of that Osprey search and rescue plugin for TAC. Again, Nate went over these, but I'll just touch on some high points here. So we used sensors on the phone, some machine learning, some data that we were able to collect, both from the end user and the environment, whether it was digital terrain and elevation or land cover data, current tides, and provide a heat map over time of where a lost or isolated personnel would be. I talked about that plug-in architecture in Osprey. These are three of the initiatives we have, developing different models, using different technologies to provide that search and rescue capability. We flipped that search and rescue capability on its head and said, all right, if you are a lost or isolated personnel and you want to evade capture, we made a plug-in for that. We also gave the user some variables that they could enter, their health status, whether they were carrying a pack, whether they were injured. And the screenshots here just show different routes based on the user inputs. Is your health excellent, good, okay? The route changes based on the user input. For that mobile alt P&T technology, these are some of the technologies that we explored, some for indoor geolocation, some for outdoor geolocation. From an outdoor geolocation, different approaches. Some used LiDAR collects and the Skyline Nav. Some used machine learning and advanced filtering, the Pendulum folks. We brought these right down to AFSOC. This isn't just lab stuff. We brought them down to AFSOC and said, what do you think? And showed them how they worked in different environments. And AFSOC went from not very interested to, we got to get more of this. So it was a cool learning curve for the AFRL team and some of our end users as well. We did have an effort for detecting GPS jamming and spoofing in TAK. We have two efforts ongoing that are furthering that work. We have Zephyr and Humla taking different approaches of this, but basically they're looking at chipset values of themselves, their friends, and determining if anything is going on that shouldn't be going on, and providing that information on the ATAK map. We've done a number of prototypes over the last few years. The USAFE prototype was our first mass deployment to Air Force Security Forces. We deployed over 700 devices to USAFE, 13 bases, all using ATAK and TAKServer. And for us, that became a large-scale test bed for transitioning AFRL technologies. We then partnered with AFL-CMC HPU, the Security Force SPO, and we helped them deploy TAK to 39 Air Force bases. And again, same thing, formed a partnership. So as we develop new technologies, features, plugins, we now have a program office to put them in front of, and they can validate them, decide whether it's relevant for security forces or not, invest in them, or throw them out. We've done a number of hackathons, and I want to give full credit to Ralph Kohler in seeing the value and really pushing the envelope for dual-use technology developed under this program. You heard Corey say CivTAK 25, November 4th through 6th. I'll definitely be there. Ralph will be on his retirement glide slope, but I hope to present there as well. Again, we're offering technology and developing technology for the military, but with dual use opportunities, and we don't want to miss the opportunity to give that community new technology that they need. This team has weaponized SBIRs, a third of our funding portfolio. I think ABO was an AFRL-funded $9.1 million program. I turned it into an $80 million program, and a substantial amount of that funding came from SBIRs. We have 2 topics that we're reviewing. We finished reviewing just a few weeks back. Maturing the state of LoRa technology for the DoD, and then doing vision-based navigation for DIU-approved Blue UAS. So we're excited to see what comes out of those 2 efforts, and we'll obviously publish those findings when those decisions are made. 3 of the areas that we're highly focused on moving forward. So again, the ABO funding from AFRL has run up, but leadership says I can go as long as I keep bringing customer dollars in, and I am fortunate to have a few to continue for the next couple of years. One of the areas my customers are super excited about is controlling multiple drones with UAS tool. So working closely with partners, getting them excited, and I think I can get AFRL excited to subsidize that next year, but we're putting that plan together as we speak. You heard a little bit about, or a lot about, speech to text today, and then sending speech to text over low data rate or low bandwidth radios, translating it on the other side back to speech, maybe in a different language. Sunshine talked about that a little bit. That's her program that kicks off October 1st. AFRL calls it Sparks, but it's a lot of the technology you saw here today going to be taken to the next level. And then I continue to bring in customer-funded R&D with the team, focused on most of these areas: force protection, drones, and making sure systems that the Air Force uses integrate with not only other Air Force systems, but other branches of the military. I want to highlight that 88th Air Base Wing partnership. So the team up in Rome since 2019 has focused on R&D for the TAK ecosystem, but in the last couple of years, the 88th Air Base Wing has been doing the same thing, and we've partnered with them to make sure that we're combining our R&D forces and investing in technologies that are mutually beneficial, not just to AFRL and the 88th, but our mutual customers as well. And so we've done an awesome job with that. The 88th has over an $11 million portfolio in the TAK ecosystem, so they're doing great things, and you've heard a lot about their technologies through us and through others today. There is a TAK Center of Excellence that the 88th Air Base Wing stood up at Wright-Patt. They do TAK training. It's a much cheaper resource than some other offerings I've seen, so I'd encourage anyone who's interested in TAK training for their organization to take a good hard look at that and take advantage of it. The 88th Air Base Wing has done a lot from the compliance perspective. If anyone has seen the announcement that WinTAK is available on the Air Force Enterprise Approved Products list, that means you can run WinTAK on Nipper now, just in time for WinTAK to go away. But the 80th has also done some great work in getting spectrum approvals for different radios, different tactical radios. So they'll get an approval from the Air Force, and that often finds reciprocity or just minor updates from a paperwork perspective for other users to use that same tactical radio. So I just want to foot stomp the importance there. And then the 88th offers operational support to a lot of things happening, not just at Wright-Patt, but across the Air Force. There was a NATO C2 summit in Dayton, Ohio, a few months back. And the 88th Air Base Wing provided TAK watches. So for those not familiar, CivTAK makes WebTAK, that is TAK compatible software running on a Samsung watch. And so the 88th helped deploy a bunch of those watches with Ascent to folks responding for security for that NATO C2 summit. They also deployed Drone Hone, not just at Wright-Patt, but in downtown Dayton. And there was another incident where someone was flying a drone way too close in a closed airspace to the NATO C2 summit. And that suspect was also apprehended using TAK and Drone Hone. So I love when those low dollar amount, I think ABO invested $72K into Drone Hone and a little bit into Edge Scout. And the benefits that we've seen have already paid for themselves. It's awesome. For anyone interested, I included Kevin's information on the slides, some information about the Center of Excellence, and then some resources that Ralph talked about. I don't know if he had these links in his, so I included them here. And these slides are up on tak.gov. And that's all I got. Finished in 16 minutes. Plenty of time for beer now. Any questions? Come on, one. All right.
All right, I'll do one. Seeing as you're trying to get a lot of different drones into UAS tool, and there's like a big, powerful drive from your side on that. What are you doing to motivate the vendors and those who make the drones to actually implement their systems with UAS tool in a proper way?
Yeah, good question. I'll tell a quick story. It kind of ties an answer in, and then I'll elaborate. Ralph mentioned this in his Acquisition 501 kickoff Keystone brief yesterday. But Ralph and I went to the New York UAS Public Safety Summit a couple weeks back. And on vendor day, there was over a dozen vendors there. And this is for public safety. This has nothing to do with the DoD other than DHS was a participant in this thing. And we went booth vendor by vendor and said, do you guys do anything with TAK? And all but two of the vendors had TAK as an offering of their UAS technology. Some of them made drones. Some made drone finding technology and counter UAS technology that they thought public safety would want, but all of them integrated with TAK because I think it goes back to Ralph's statement about the value of technology and the size of the user community. So we've focused on making sure that we could roll out TAK to as many people as possible, and that ecosystem, that number of users, makes the technology more valuable. And so if you're a company trying to sell something to the DoD, and there's a ton of users there, you have a ton of opportunity for sales. And I equate that to the UAS question. One of the vendors there who wasn't familiar with ATAK, they were familiar with ATAK, but they weren't compatible with it, said, yeah, we'd love to work with you guys or the TAK team and control our drone with TAK because we see the opportunity of not just the federal government, but now public safety is asking for UAS vendors to fly with UAS tool because it's a standard ground control station. So I think it's a user community demand. They see that if they're compatible with TAK, it opens them up to a whole new customer base that they see is out there.
Thank you.
You got it. Thanks.